the brokerage. I never want to say the seller pays me because they can do the math and they're going to think, oh my gosh, she's going to make 3 times 6, $18,000 when I buy a house. I never say in my fee, I never say my fee is such. It's the brokerage will be paid a certain commission. And then whatever the split is on that, and they don't need to know your split, who cares? But when you say split, they realize you're not getting the whole 18,000.
And then I get my kittens out of that.
Right.
So I need some more.
I've had buyers think that my car was a company car.
Or my company pays me.
Or
Oh my God, that just kills me.
yeah, I'm paid to do this. Mr. Fritz, would you all stand up and give this gentleman a hand for showing up? Stand up, please. Dave, please have a seat. Yeah, that'll work. All right. Anyway, we're glad you're here, Dave. You're an integral part of this presentation today. All right. So now we're going to have fun. We're going to go around the room and we're going to ask everybody one question. The question is, you have to give us your name and then you have to answer the question. The question is, what do you think is the most difficult part of selling real estate? What's the most difficult component of selling real estate? Name and answer the question, please.
Listing or selling?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Linda Cardoza, making friends with my clients.
That's the most difficult part
Yes.
for you?
You got to really get in there.
Oh, you are so friendly. I can't believe that, but okay. Name?
Sally Nickerson. Most difficult.
The most difficult component of our business, in your opinion?
The initial meetings
Okay.
with either clients.
Setting it up or actually going through the,
No, just to make the connections
okay.
so that they feel comfortable.
Terry. Oh, thank you for standing up.
Terry Pease of Jackpot Real Estate.
And your social security, no.
3945-5676. 5419400.
Okay.
Okay. The most difficult part of my real estate career has been finding somebody to work competently with me.
Oh, yeah.
That has been the most
You don't
struggle.
get Amanda or Robin. They belong to me.
How much do you pay them?
Whatever it is, I'll pay them more.
Oh, cha-ching.
And I lie a lot too.
But that has been
Yeah.
the most difficult. Finding good,
It is hard to find good people.
finding somebody to help with the execution, the administrative work.
Right.
Difficult.
Yes, it is.
Level of expertise
That I work at. Yes.
Okay, yeah. We have to all be particular. Amanda, I know you just started, but you have a good answer for us, I'm sure. But give us your name and what do you perceive would be the most difficult component of our business?
Amanda Lee.
A little louder, please.
I can't hear you.
Project. It's
Amanda
showtime.
Lee. And I would say the most difficult part that I've seen so far is all the paperwork. It's everywhere. It's huge. There's so much of it. So much paperwork.
That's why she's coming at us with these staples that don't have staples on them. That's okay. Okay, Joan. Go for it. I'm over here.
Joan Clark. I think one of the most difficult things is when you have a person, a potential client, some of them seem so nervous and unsure. And so they are speaking so quickly. It's difficult to get them to sort of slow down so that you can start some sort of a process with them. It's like they know what they want in their head, but they can't quite spit it out, but they want you to like inject the information to them over the phone or in person.
Robin, what's the solution to her concern?
Please.
I got one.
Teresa.
Buyer's meetings.
Buyers meetings. Yes, Joan. Buyers meetings.
I would love to have them just slow down enough for me to even say that. I've had people that are just like, oh,
Well, then you pull your calendar out and say, when can you meet in my office for 2 hours? Would you? Yeah. Yep. Now, Dave, I know you're not a realtor and I know you never want to be one, but please give us your name and what do you feel in our business is the most difficult component of what we do?
The name is David Fritz, Building Inspection Company of Alaska. And other than working with realtors, are you saying?
Well, no, you can say that. You can say that.
Well, I'm not in the real estate business, obviously, but it seems to me that the most difficult thing that you all have to be confronted with is really an understanding of what your client wants, whether they be a seller or a buyer. Because it seems to me that just in walking through these homes, when I'm doing an inspection and there's conversation between the realtor and either the buyer or the seller, that sometimes the information seems, to my way of thinking, and again, I'm not in this business, but it seems to be a little bit weak maybe. And I don't know whether the reason is that your client is intimidating, like you've indicated, maybe in the way they communicate, or what the deal is. But it just seems to me that a real good understanding of how you interface with your client is important.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Teresa?
I perceive it to be, and it's my perception, to be competence of licensees. Like having basic contract writing skills and having basic execution of contract skills. So I perceive the most difficult and probably communication.
And this is Teresa Block, trainer extraordinaire, former realtor.
I am still a realtor.
And still a realtor.
Luann Gove. I think one of the things I am reminded of a lot is basically so we get out of our own way. It's our personalities, our habits. They're not important. It's really the clients. And so I think a lot of times it's just getting out of your own way and doing what needs to be done for the buyer, the seller, whoever it is you're dealing with.
Interesting. So maybe ego.
Check the ego at the door.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. I like that. We need to be reminded who we work for.
Kimberly Smith, and right now it's just getting clients. It's the hardest part. 'Cause I'm so
Finding
new.
clients or?
Yeah, 'cause I'm so new, so I'm trying
Right.
to like prospect a little bit better.
Okay, just prospect, looking for the clients for that buyer meeting, right? Okay, Kelly.
I am Kelly Gray Wonder with Home State Mortgage. And I think for me, I really thought about it when everybody was answering. I think the most difficult part on my end is dealing with unreasonable people that know more than I do, or they're explosive with difficulties that might come up, or they try and penny pinch you.
You trying to what?
Penny pinch you.
Ask for breaks.
Ask me to cut this fee or that fee, and having to explain to them that, everybody's entitled to the same
Right.
fees and all.
Right. Robin?
I think lately it's over the summer, especially with as busy as we've been, is staying on top of the transactions, staying ahead of the deadlines, and really making sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's.
Absolutely. Well said. And your name is Robin.
Robin.
Okay. Hi, Paul. I'm glad you're here. All right. So I was afraid to ask, but because I didn't want a 5-minute speech. But Paul, name and what do you find to be the most difficult?
Paul
thing?
Lambert, private, United States Army, 01352. That's all.
What was that about ego earlier?
No, but I don't know what the question was.
I
I'm
hear
sorry.
the question. The question is, what do you feel is the most difficult component of our business today?
For me, it's follow-up, keeping organized.
Yeah,
With
that's
my
a big
notes and
deal.
everything. Yeah, spacing stuff out, calling people out, or clients had to call me and I didn't call them back, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Organization's huge.
Yeah, organization.
Yeah, lots of notes. Okay. Kathy Fernandez, in my view, and that's probably why Dave is here today, in my view, the most difficult part of this business is the reinspection process and all the moving parts that go along with that, and all the trouble we can get into if we don't take it seriously. So with that said, let's jump. And Dave is here to answer questions and talk about what he does and why he does it and how I rely on him. So let's go to the professional repair reinspection sheet. Let's walk through this really quickly. Number one, Home inspections, how are inspectors chosen? And this is why I'm glad Teresa's here. How are inspectors chosen? Teresa?
Well, there's a number of different ways home inspectors are chosen. Home inspectors can be chosen out of the phone book or on a Google search. Some people can recommend home inspectors. They can also, you can recommend a higher level home inspector, such as an ASHI home inspector or something of that nature, similar to a realtor where they have joined a trade organization. But typically buyers should be choosing home inspectors.
Teresa, my buyer doesn't know any home inspectors. What do I do next?
They will ask for your recommendation. There's a positive and a negative about giving out recommendations. Positive is these are people that you know, like, and trust, and that are that have been working with you, and that hopefully that you've set a relationship with. A negative on that is not every home inspector is perfect, nor is every Dave, except for you. Not every home inspector is perfect, and not every listing licensee is going to approve of your favorite home inspector. So occasionally we get into snits about who's going to be inspecting the property. It is supposed to only be the seller if a seller has a problem with the home inspector. However, a lot of listing licensees will cross out and say, no, you cannot use a particular home inspector. There is a danger, there's a risk to your business about doing things like that. There's all kinds of, things that you need to think about that go kind of outside of this conversation, but let's just leave it to say that that can be a risk. A lot of times it's the buyer's licensee who is choosing the home inspector. Okay, that's typically how it's, and that's real world scenario. That's typically how it happens.
That is typically how it happens. We know home inspectors that we prefer not to use because we don't feel they're competent. And I think experienced realtors know incompetent or who we feel are incompetent home inspectors. And the other thing I've learned is even with the competent home inspectors, every now and then they miss something. So they all miss something. So we put a slew of names on our purchase and sale agreements just so it kind of puts fog out, and then we end up being able to work with one of the several we like. Okay, that's how we choose them. It's kind of a gray area, right, Teresa?
It can be, and you have to be very careful.
One thing, there's a lot of liability there.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
the point.
tons of liability, right? That's why I like good home inspectors in my camp who I feel have my back. So number 2, what inspections do we recommend to our buyer clients? Anybody? What inspections do we recommend that our buyer clients have done?
Well, buyer clients, it depends.
Yeah, buyer clients.
It depends if, are we after the home inspection?
When we're sitting down to write the offer,
Right.
we're going to list some home inspectors that hopefully our buyers know and we'll choose. And if we think they're competent, we'll move forward with that. But at that time, when you're writing an offer, what inspections do you recommend?
At that point, I usually go with the home inspector because they'll.
You allow the home inspector to decide on other inspections?
Because they'll put in there about, if it hasn't had a 12-month furnace servicing, they want it done within the 12-month servicing. If they run into plumbing issues, then we get a special person for this or a structural thing for that. But I tend to leave that for the home inspector.
Okay.
And we work from there.
Okay. And I see that done a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that. Frankly, I want the home inspectors working for my buyer. Therefore, I want my buyer to consider a full-blown home inspection engineer, systems inspector, plus I want my buyer to pay for their own mechanical inspection. Excuse me, guys, allergies. Plus, I want my buyer also to have a pest inspection done. We have an issue with carpenter ants in Anchorage, and on occasion there's squirrels and mice. The only thing I care most about for my buyer clients is the carpenter ants. We've had transactions where the pest man went in and found carpenter ants, and the buyer, of course, didn't buy the property. The home was already damaged. So I personally recommend 3 inspections, and I do not want the seller paying for those inspections because I want those inspectors working for the buyer. Dave, do you have any comment on that?
So which are you do a pest inspection?
The only pest inspector that I'm aware of anymore is Pied Piper.
Right, but that's on you put that in your contract.
Yeah, it goes on my contract.
And then
On the mechanical inspections, I named 3. I named Mutka Mechanical, General Mechanical, and Comfort Inspection. Those are the 3 I named.
Method does forced air, and so if it's a boiler.
Comfort can do that, as can General Mechanical.
So we use Anchorage Plumbing
Oh, Anchorage Plumbing, okay. I didn't know Mutka was strictly forced air. I thought he was boiler also.
They do boilers. They do boilers. He does boilers, but it's specialty. And so you do HVAC, then you do the home inspection.
Walk around and hand that to people who are talking.
Is there different levels of a home inspection aside from the mechanical and gas? And I believe you said one more. Is there different levels of home inspection that people can order? No.
Well, thank you. I would say that I think what, at least from my perspective, what needs to be done by the home inspector is a full, complete visual inspection of the home, inside and out. And obviously, the philosophy of one home inspector may be a little different than the philosophy of another, which dictates where they put their emphasis in the inspection. I don't know whether that answers your question or not. As far as the mechanical heating systems are concerned, whether it be forced air or gas-fired hot water boiler, hydronic system, or something in between, some combination. Again, home inspectors have certain qualifications to inspect these components of these appliances, but in my view, you need to take more time than most home inspectors would take in inspecting something like that. So therefore, as Kathy mentioned a minute ago, I strongly support a mechanical contractor, mechanical inspection firm, or a mechanical contractor that's qualified in those two types of heating systems to do the inspection, because there's a certain amount of disassembly that's done, and a home inspector is not going to do that. As an example, forced air furnaces or garage unit heaters, if they have a cracked heat exchanger, they're dangerous, potentially dangerous. And many inspectors, I don't mean home inspectors, but I mean mechanical inspectors, choose to not partially disassemble the unit to check to see whether the heat exchanger is cracked or not. I'm convinced that the only way to really know is to inspect it by removing it. So I don't know, again, whether that answers your question or not. And then as far as pests are concerned, I think, again, as I go through a home, I look for evidence of carpenter ants or mice droppings, but I'm not an expert in determining how to abate those problems. And so that's why somebody like the people in the pest inspection business, I think are necessary. Kathy mentioned carpenter ants. Carpenter ants were a lot more prevalent a few years ago than they are now, but they're still prevalent in certain parts of Anchorage today.
Okay, go hang on to the mic. So, your reports indicate you did an HVAC inspection.
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Right. Unless there was one done, yeah.
Right, okay.
Oh, any other questions on this question? Any other comments?
I will make one thing. A lot of times we say we want a HVAC inspection done unless the seller has had one done within the last year. That's all fine, well, and good. You can ask for that, and you could, in theory, accept that. The only thing that I would tell you as a buyer's licensee is you're going to want to talk to that HVAC company and make sure there aren't some supporting documents that attach to that there weren't some recommendations or something that they actually requested that the seller do.
Exactly. Even if with our buyers, even if the seller says, the people that service my system, they were here just 6 months ago, here's that report. Thank you very much. But we still hire our own mechanical inspector, and we give them a copy of that, because 50% of the time, our mechanical inspector will find things that the people that were just servicing the unit year after year after year, they'll find things that haven't been done, because now it's an inspection, not just a servicing or a maintenance. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Probably one of the things that I learned this year that I was a little surprised with. I'm thinking new construction, everything's good. You don't have to worry about home inspections. Oh my, was that an awakening? But yes, they will always, I swear, have home inspections, even when they're new construction, because you just never know. And I was assured of that after I spoke to someone who actually had a structural problem in a new build.
Wow.
The last really interesting thing I've seen in new construction is the guy who must have been doing the roof put his foot through the sheeting. Does everybody know the sheeting on there? And then just covered it up with shingles.
How'd that go over?
Not so swift when there was a home inspection that was complete.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3, what to do if buyer opts?
As far as a listing point of view, on inspections, before I have a list to help, if it's not well inspected, I would check the costs.
Exactly, yeah.
Not I'm sorry.
Just gets ordered.
Except for the water.
Exactly.
Oh.
Any questions about what she just said? If you're listing a property on well and septic, you're very well advised to ask your seller to please spend the money and start the process of getting his certificate of sanitary approval. Because that can take a while, and a lot of our older systems here in Anchorage are going to fail. And we did lose we did not ask a seller client about 3 years ago to do that because they had such amazing maintenance records that we did not ask them to spend that money. He was very ill and wasn't going to live much longer. Money was a question, and so we did not insist because they had maintenance records. A perfect buyer comes along, they do the inspection now of the well and septic, it fails, the buyer walks. So we will never do that again.
And that's one of the things that holds us up a lot of times.
The COSA,
Oh, for sure. Waiting until the last minute to order the bids.
I can't even imagine.
That close.
yeah, you're right, Terry.
I just can't even imagine.
Okay, number 3, what to do if buyer opts not to do all the inspections you recommended? What do we do then if the buyer opts not to do those inspections?
Get a bunch of home harnesses.
Yes, waivers. Waivers. Teresa, anything you can add to that?
Yeah, I actually used to have a letter. I told you to get an inspected stupid letter. And it was kind of it was worded very, very strongly. It's, based on my professional recommendation, I cannot emphasize how much I'm asking you to do this. And this, you can type this up in email form and you can send it out. I've asked you to get this. If you want 3 inspection done, I've asked you to get this one, and this one. You are choosing against my professional recommendation to have this done. I just want to let you know about the liability that's entailed here. And that you have the absolute right to have these done. You typically can negotiate repairs that well exceed the cost of because you're complaining about tell me what you charge today, Dave.
For regular home inspection?
Yeah, just regular straight up.
$450.
You're deciding to save $450, blah, blah. I'm telling you, it was like, if I would have received it, I would have considered it to be a little bit insulting, but I wanted it to be at that level to let somebody know how critical it is for you to spend this money on this end, because I'm not going to be responsible or held liable on the back end when you're not happy.
I'll do 2 inspections. How does that? Does that
Yeah.
make you happy, Teresa?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Next question. How important are the inspection deadlines stated in the PSA? How important are those deadlines? Critical.
Part of the contract.
If they're missed, if you miss the deadline for your buyer to do his inspection, guess what? He doesn't get to do one. And he's now accepting the property in as-is condition. He can back out for maybe other reasons, but he could never hang his hat on that. Teresa, am I right?
That is how the contract is written, absolutely. And there's a lot of licensees who miss that, including some very, very seasoned, excellent practitioners.
Right. So don't miss those. Put them on your forehead. Put them on your bathroom mirror. Number 5, what happens if inspection dates are missed? Well, like we said, they don't get to do their inspections, and there's all kinds of potential liability. Number 6, how do we know? Now, this is why Dave is here. How do we know if repairs, remedies, modifications have been completed? Okay, this happens all the time. We're 2 weeks away from closing. We believe the repairs are done, but how do we know for sure they're done? And the reason I care is because my buyer gets to pay for the first reinspection. He's just given Dave $450, and if Dave is going to go back out and inspect the work that supposedly has been done, that's another $150, Dave?
Right.
Okay, so I don't, especially if I'm the listing realtor, I do not want that selling realtor in the house doing their re-inspect unless I've made it crystal clear that that work is already done. And what would be the reason for that, anybody, if I'm the listing realtor?
Because if there's a second inspection.
That's exactly right, because if I haven't been diligent in making sure that the repairs are done before that re-inspect is done, then my poor seller gets to pay Dave to come out the second time. or maybe the third time or the fourth time. It goes on forever. So how do we know, first of all, as the listing realtor, my seller is going to have to prove to me that the work is done. I'm not going to take the responsibility of saying they're done and if they're not done. So the seller has to prove to me. What are some forms of proof? Receipts. Pictures, receipts, okay. All right, and that's, again, like I said, why David's here today. Our story is that we were working with another realtor, and we were representing the buyer. There was a lot of work to be done. Dave had done the initial inspection. We asked the seller to, through their realtor, to do, let's say for talking purposes, 10 repairs, remedies, modifications. We were told they were done. We had the receipts from the listing realtor. I prefer that my buyers hire Dave to go and check these, re-inspect the property, check the repairs. If we had only relied on the receipts, half of those repairs were not done correctly, which is that letter that you see in there. So we asked Dave to go back. Dave, can you kind of explain to us kind of what tends to go sideways in this scenario that I'm talking about? You go out there and sure, the work was done, but.
I like to start with, I like to start at the beginning, which means the agreement, whatever that agreement is between buyer and seller as to what repairs are going to be done. If it's an addendum to the purchase and sale agreement, fine. If it's an appraisal, fine. If it's everything in my report, and that's stated that way in the agreement between parties, that's fine. But I start with that because I've been out to these final inspections too many times to find that what I was given as to the repairs that were to be done isn't correct. In other words, and I'm not picking on the people in your industry, but if, as an example, a realtor says, all of your repairs need to be done, Dave, all of them that are listed. So I go out there with that information and find that half of my repairs weren't really requested and weren't agreed to. So I've learned a long time ago that I want to have a copy in my hand before I go out there. Before I go out, I want to have a copy in my hand of what the agreement between buyer and seller is, because I look at that as the gospel. I don't care what my report says. What's important is that. Now, once I have that, then I can simply go out. I can, quickly go out to a home and go through the list from top to bottom. And if the repairs are completed in a satisfactory manner, maybe consistent with what I said in my report, and maybe not consistent with what I said in my report, but in a satisfactory manner, I will so state in a letter, like the letter that I think I only stated that one time in that letter. On the other side of that coin, if the repairs are not completed, then I'm not going to write a letter stating that they are. And I think that many times the other side, in other words, the seller's side, through their realtor, may not get the exact repair requirements. And so the repair contractor then doesn't understand what the exact repair requirements are. That's my suspicion. Or the repair contractor can't read, or he doesn't care, he or she doesn't care, or they're incompetent. And so the repairs aren't done in a satisfactory manner. The receipt of pictures, photographs, the receipt of contractor billings and information as to what he did for the repairs is fine, but it's not going to substitute for my eyes looking at the repair and writing a letter stating that it's done in a satisfactory manner. So I think what goes sideways is communication, lack thereof on the part of maybe several people. And I think that to do it the way I'd like to have it done would be to have a clearly written addendum to the purchase agreement, purchase and sale agreement, that states exactly what the repairs are. It's signed by, that document is signed by both parties. I have confidence then that I can go out and look at these repairs and sign off on them. If, as an example, the document, the agreed document states that part of the repairs I list in my recommendations of repairs don't have to be done, then I'm not going to comment on them in my letter. So I don't know whether that clears up.
Well, and I'd say to
Yeah.
have
on to that is that if Dave calls for a licensed bonded roofing inspection or a licensed bonded structural inspection, or he would like for the plumbing to be done by a licensed plumber, we will actually enforce that. Because if David calls for it to be not just a handyman to do it, but for a licensed bonded contractor to come in and do the work, we will make sure that that person is.
But a handyman is licensed.
That's fine. But I mean, if he calls for a specialist in an area to be inspected, we will enforce that. And you have to always remember, we're coming from the buyer standpoint of a sound home. So we can't just accept a handyman's repair if he calls for a specialist in that area.
Sally?
One thing that I really, really appreciate about Dave's report is that when you make recommendations for complicated repairs, you give a method of how it should be done. So the contractor, and then there might be two, which is wonderful because then the contractor a lot of times will call you up and then discuss it. But some of the things that Dave runs into are very complicated, and he's already outlined how to do the darn thing. And that solves a lot of problems that a lot of inspectors don't do. And thank you for doing that. That's extra effort and time, but it really, really helps.
Any other concerns about that one? So let's jump to number 11. We probably touched on everything else. Number 11, when is the best time to do a reinspection? I'm actually already mic'd, sweetie, so you can wonder, I'm mic'd. Okay, the best time to do a reinspection, first of all, I don't want to spend any more time in that house than I need to. I've shown them the house. Maybe they had to go back and take a second look. I've been there for the inspections. I don't particularly, and maybe even for the reinspection. So for years, I've said to myself, okay, we're going to do that final inspection for the repairs the day before closing. And that'll be their final walkthrough, and that'll be their final inspection. And I have learned that is not too bright. So now, my new MO is if there's repairs to be done, I want to get back in that house as soon as those repairs are done, hopefully 1 to 2 weeks before we're going to close, so that if Dave or whoever finds that those repairs were not done correctly or satisfactorily, there's still a window of time to come back, get them done correctly before we go to closing. So now I'm very willing to go back 2 weeks before closing for the reinspection, and then go back the day before we sign for the final look at the property. Anything else, Teresa, we should add to that?
Yeah, I think we've already probably touched on it, but, and I don't know that this is a listing licensee issue. We're not even recording, sweetie. They couldn't get it to work, so don't worry. Literally, I don't know if this is a listing licensing thing. I don't know if it's a contractor thing. I don't know what they do. But so many times, as we've already mentioned, that repairs aren't done. I see some buyers licensees rushing out and scheduling re-inspections without checking in with listing licensees to make sure the work is done.
My point, yeah.
I see people going out and doing picking a date or looking at receipts and then doing it, but not really following through and making sure that those things are done. You're absolutely correct. People are going out way too late for this to be done, and that's going to delay closing. And gosh, we're already going to start delaying closing for additional days. That's going to be a disaster. And then I don't know, Dave, you seem to be one of the few home inspectors that will actually talk to the other side, and will talk to contractors and things like that. Occasionally you get into it where a home inspector says, I only work with the buyer and I'm not talking to anybody else. So occasionally their comments, their written comments are extremely difficult for people to understand what they're talking about. Pictures have helped enormously, but remember, we used to do this without photos of knowing exactly what you were looking at. But even so, sellers, when they're in charge of doing repairs, are looking for the least expensive, most expedient way to do something. They're not looking at, sometimes I want to say quality versus cost. It's a quality versus cost. situation.
One of my biggest fears is when I'm representing a buyer, and one of my biggest fears is when the seller says, I did all these improvements here. So any repairs that need to be done, I can do them. No, I do not want you touching this house again, because we know the quality is not there, and we insist in on licensed contractors.
And we have to have, well, with the final now, we have photos.
Oh, really? That's if the lender's calling for inspections or re-inspections, right?
He has stated that there are inspections that need to be done, and he's gone back to do a re-inspect. We now have to have photos along with that.
Okay. Very interesting. One other thing too, if my buyer opts to save $150, opts not to do a re-inspect with his home inspector, they sign another waiver. They sign a document that says, yep, the home inspection went well, and yes, we chose not to have our home inspector on site. I'm going to sign another waiver, because I'm not a home inspector, and I don't have the capability of knowing if things are good or not good.
Such a mistake and a big risk a big thing for your business, a huge risk for you as a licensee. That's just a risk.
Yeah, because if you went back over there with your buyer and you had your eyes on the repairs and you thought they were fine and they really weren't fine 6 months later, yeah. So have them sign a waiver that they opted not to hire Mr. Fritz or whoever. And so now like I said, I'm Kathy Fernandez, and I consider the inspection and the re-inspection process the most difficult part of our job, because I find that I've got to take the call for repairs, take all those receipts, try to read the receipts that you cannot possibly read. It took Robin 4 hours to finally figure out what the contractor was saying. Compare that back to what was supposed to be done. It's very labor intensive, and it has, it almost has nothing to do with meeting with buyers and sellers, but it's an integral part of what we're supposed to do. And in my view, it's the most difficult part. It's probably the part I like the least. That and bathrooms that need new grout.
What?
It's kind of a joke between Dave and I. When Dave starts calling for, we need to replace that one tile in that bathroom, we all know that's not the way it works. It's the whole wall, isn't it, Dave?
It's more than what you can see on the surface, yes.
That's true. Okay, while Dave is here, it's almost time to stop. Do you have any other questions, any concerns, comments? Did you learn something?
You mentioned in passing that there were certain areas that still have carpenter problems. What is the name of the area?
Hillside is material. Hillside.
Carpenter.
Where do you come from?
Yeah, the hillside, where there's a lot of water.
So the hillside is notorious.
Also, what I've discovered too is if the house that you're having inspected, if they've had any kind of add-ons, or if the soils have been disturbed around the property in the last 6 months or so, there's a real good chance there's going to be ants that are going to migrate from the disturbed soils towards the house. We discovered that as well. Dave has business cards with him if anybody wants any of his cards.
I would also say be suspicious of anyone who packs their firewood against the house.
Absolutely, yeah.
So always watch for that.
Right.
Especially if it's been there for like 20 years, hopefully.
There's gonna, yeah.
What did you say about?
Well, if there's a lot of disturbed soils, like they removed a tree stump near the house, or even, 20 or 40 feet away, and there's potential that disturbs ant colonies, migrate towards the house. I've seen that before. Yeah. The ones